Hello, America. WFSB. I apologize if you guys did it first. You guys attached me to fake words. You heard I've been rude in another context too. This is where everyone speaks to other people, and that's forced, and where that's exploited, where there are child offenders, and there are male and female roles. It is not by accident, since every time we heard about all these 6 people with kids, how could they be letting people do that? They never involve the women roles. We have women interbranch, overt criminal enterprises, private, and all that sick with that killing and people tied to killing spots. That wasn't complicated originally, and still that was bound together by sick laws that were criminally legalized. Since before our founding parents were born, that had been sustained to propagate what was only capable of being and defending unities and or divisions in reaction to the real causes of negative value, nature, progressions, acts, and natures, that increasingly, more and more, everyone had to blame other things other than themselves. Evolution has been separated from its native ground science, which was native pure by everyone, until the sciences became tactically, criminally foreign influenced. Now roles with this pretending other are opinions, opinion natures, conviction natures, and physical delusions that are propagated, that are exploited also further than that. And what is exploiting too is people's premises treatments, sequence treatments. So in other words, a breaching method, worse than just a predicate acts delivery system method, had forced laws sick then that are manifest identities of relativity to the problems now. See, we have fake sciences that blame other things other than themselves wrongly, America and other countries, for the real causes for shootings with locations. Not by accident. This is a method that had criminal insidiousness natures of positive treatments, overtly / insidiously, by a whole bunch of different people, and negative treatments in collusion. In other words, there's fake science when you have color with the law treated the way it was. When you have all exceptions and exception nature, and demonstration of that self-valued, being and having been not let demonstrated because other exceptions and exception nature tied to the subjects in the locations, all of them, tied to memory, all memory, tied to all awareness of what all could be. We are captive sophistication modern nations, A through Z. It is clear as day when people make opinions about things. But the uses of this is what really shows it's clear as day. So people have the same old opinions. And in other words, and then they pretend other people have the opinions. In other words, they're forcing us to have long words while we're waiting for, I've been asking you guys for a long time, for response. They've been replaced. They make problems online, on Facebook, interbranch with the foreign. It is clear as day, originally still, how interbranch family members are kept criminally foreign influenced. Intercampuses and intra-campuses. There is no integrity. Washington, D.C. World Trade Center tied to the syntax racketeering. Identity thefts and frauds, clear as day, sickly distinctly on each age and nature of campuses connected. That what shows them recorded connected are exploitations of them leading up to the World Trade Center and since. Are what they call the intelligence community has never been not dependent upon things like wars and valuing them in the past, because they are incapable of defending correlation nature by the Constitution, unabridged. And it's all that can be discerned, using truths that are true always, while as exceptions, as the identity that of value progression that causes evolution's fruits and gifts. Its identity of relationship to itself, and the value of that. Its identity of volume, volume's a relationship to itself, and the value of that which generated all other identities of volume. Physics, where it is value as nature, / nature as value, as volume. Also, metaphysics and identity itself, these are three bound identities where value is nature. In other words, physics is value as nature, where and how identity is value. Identity is a relationship to what is positive and negative simultaneously. So we have interbranch with emotions, opinions, and delusions while they are simultaneously fabricating audio and video, and with people behind the World Trade Center attack, and with the investigators of it. Hartford Hospital recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with a whole bunch of people from Wethersfield, Connecticut, interbranch, that are also criminally foreign influence with a whole bunch of other countries, and rolls with methods where they make, if you respond to them, when they have acting, and they have conversations with people behind their backs, with strangers, and confessions is used by this. They're using the identities of volume, clear as day, incapable of pretending to be integrity as forced per all kind of economic impositions and things like that, where each hundreds of nations at once are pretending to be integrity. Science never spoke for one identity of the ground location. They're using the same on-off campuses connected method that keeps them further and further needing to hide life aggressions to all ages of all spots of correlation, all places where it could show conjunction to other natures of correlation that are all simultaneous. And when we appreciate what they are actually simultaneously by, not that fake unity, fake righteous unity, hundreds of nations at once, as insidious nature, as criminally legalized, criminal insidious nature. That doesn't have to be proven. Where and how the courts and the police forms, individually, distinctly, and non-distinctly grouped, and with the other branch, together, they are recorded, fabricating audio and video with other countries, how kept needing to. Their investigations, investigators, their roles personally, with predicate acts, with people, with the people that research problems, all victim predators. So now they have the sense and sensibility, they have the opinions and the conviction natures of everyone as liars pretending other. Self-valuing means and needs to pretend other people are liars. Try to figure out if other people are liars in the furtherance of using other people's information. That is, in other words, overt criminal enterprises and our branches of government are kept needing to hide life progressions vertically and horizontally. Get kept needing to use hide, clear as day, complete possession of their identities, individually grouped and together. Every single member of the executive branch, every single member of the judicial branch. That's what spoke for and speaks for people stacking in New York City. Shock and awe, victim predators. But see, we're not being allowed to show how they're victims, reacting to it wrong. Because they forge names and switch names, for example. That's a subject. Their methods are recorded. Them pretending other is recorded too. Their methods. So you have to get them onto paper. Before the World Trade Center attack, Hartford courts and New Britain courts, and people personally involved with them, and Connecticut military, intercities that were involved with predicate acts outside of courts, and with their treatments of cases every day. That was the substance of what they were doing when they were enforcing laws, where they had color the way they had it involved, which is now. Because when they explain what caused that, they blame it on other things other than themselves. They're speaking for identity as black or white, and they're forcing everyone else to play white or to play black. Still, when the breaching method forced that, science didn't get between what was making the problems between the North and South. Slavery was sickly distinctly in the North and South. Our founders had to leave it entrenched. That means they had to leave what was already had been sustained, far incapable of any nature of unity or of justice or of premises treatment science. Anything it could be is far short of being what was needed to speak for everyone, to speak for the value of the surface values of the Constitution. Has nothing to, in other words, they're trying to pretend. They're pretending they don't realize offensively. It's not, they know. There are exceptions to the language of the law, like where they say, we can't sue media companies. There are exceptions to these things. Before the World Trade Center attack, the news media and investigators with uses of locations next to the news media locations, they're involved with predicate acts, with wire crimes, identity thefts, frauds, attaching little kids and their family members to fake locations. Worse than extortion, because they did this. They had people make confessions tied. Now someone says, oh, do you know this person? That person's involved with identity thefts and frauds. Like these doctors. There's doctors in a Leahy family, a whole bunch of ones tied to them, and their neighbors. Involved with identity theft, fraud, fake conversations with me and with others. These are various natures of courts personally involved with the people. Various natures of courts with their own courts criminally involved, but also with locations criminally involved through time, and with campuses, and with forging names and switching names. And they use the method of pretending not to understand people. I call it to report rape threats recorded on Facebook, interbranch and on and off the campuses, with the policing of the campuses, with a since proven principal child offenders campus. They had more roles with that then and now, and people with other natures of organized crime, like Joshua Julian, and various natures of federal criminals associated with former director of the FBI Robert Luskin, and with his co-defendants and their family members, like a Thaddeus Grabowski, and like a John LeConte, and another one. All three of them were involved with predicate acts that were on and off my campuses connected when I was growing up. And with this method where they force everyone to speak through other people, and they put people and little kids of each age through time, the same people, putting little kids to fake locations. They did this with the news media through administrations, where identity thefts and frauds against everyone. This is worse than just elections frauds, election thefts. It rolls self-value by whoever wins and whoever loses. That's why they can't contest properly, because they don't have a lawyer who could speak properly for them, because the law itself is evidence. With the bar itself, in other words. I'm not a lawyer. No, people, their delusions since founding are evidence. If you think that we could have cars, let alone trucks and cranes and things like that, and not build better than they did when there were laws for slavery against everyone, how could you bring up or brought up in any age of campus slavery without explaining the fact, cheap nature slavery of our founding parents who didn't have free speech, who had to hide their roles with it? Now we still have psychologists, psychiatry, people involved with linguistics that are involved with racketeering methods, for example, pretending people don't understand about history, saying that James Madison's our founding father because he didn't sign the Declaration of Independence. We have AB logic. We have physical delusions, raw logic experts. So where we have to have experts to counter that, we can't, because they have too many natures of organized crime already at once, having been exploited databases with that, not just per that industry, those industries, in those jobs, in those locations with the people, you know. It's also just the locations themselves. All locations, all positions of memory, all positions of syntax, nature, functioning. You know, that science reveals that what was designed only, you know, and claimed fathomable for, they say, oh, the taxes, the money, the resources, but these resources have to pay for the jobs for these people to do these things. We need to do whatever we can for free at the same time to help the most exploited people. And with the whole world has to do this at the same time for it to work. We have to be like a human immune system. For example, agreeing. Just to agreeing to put all the people who are refugees with no homes. Evolution science only feels like games. We ask them to go into our temporary stewardships, and we force that temporary stewardship to be higher than, you know, standards they have, what they call poverty, because they can't call it what it really is. The correlation in science actually reveals it. The breaching method employed in positions and uses of them, and slavery, identity thefts and frauds. So they separate subjects. A subject as an identity of volume must be discerned as an identity of volume /s. A subject that can be plural or one, and every singular subject has subjects attached to it. And all that has the identity that mentions work or not in relationship to it. They are further positive or not in relationship to it and to its identity of relationship to itself, and the value of that. So, for example, they use parks. They use the locations next to parks through time. Dozens of people from Central Connecticut State University and Trinity College had the effects of where they film. They film things where then they keep things, the problems between people, and they never brought in where they're overt criminal enterprises and where they're interbranch or in collusion, and private criminal enterprises simultaneously, and people next to body dumping spots. This is not complicated. These are the same people with locations crimes that were recorded having been simultaneously. The value of their roles with the uses of Facebook for sexually natured and for judicial and medications crimes and overt gangs drug crimes with the same interbranch drug cliques. Why should they get the best pot and stuff like that through time? Like Rich Dombrowski, Sal Civiello, and their neighbors, Brian Bonin, people associated all along Route 3 with the state judicial branch offices, with drugs crimes and medicines crimes with kids, and with doctors attaching little kids to fake locations with themselves, with crimes with their patients and criminals before they got caught, and further, with the people on the child sex offender registry, involved with various natures of courts, judges, and prosecutors. Everyone, they're sick since founding. Just like the overt criminal enterprises, private per how they have them grouped, but even better, the way they are recorded with these other methods and natures and motivations of crimes that are in relationship to that breaching method. It is possible, I'm not even a lawyer, it is possible to charge the breaching method and or the predicate acts delivery system method itself by charging the methods recorded. For example, switching names. Wethersfield police are recorded, confessed, and demonstrated over the past month distinctly from months and years prior, since the World Trade Center attack. They have roles with military families that have insights into the identity ground locations, like in Middletown on the water, and Hartford on the water, and like on Wethersfield on the water spots. People associated with that, involved with syntax nature oriented, mail crimes, wire crimes, identity thefts and frauds, also as roles acting, lies and illusions on and off campuses tied to predicate acts stuck into campuses' databases, verbally spoken, because these are people furthering lie progressions through time. So Wethersfield police, they forge and switch names and they make confessions, like about how they have the name, a whole bunch of people with the name Sullivan, or use the name Sullivan, involved with them, with predicate acts, intercities, on and off places on Park Street too, through time, involved on and off campuses with people on the child sex offender registry, associated with and as people who answer the phones for the police forms, and for people who answer the phones for the ones associated with WFSB in Rocky Hill, and Fox Connecticut News in Hartford. And then they pretend it's personal. It's nothing personal against them. They attach me to fake words. And then they lied about my behavior in response to it. There's no way, so they recorded themselves. You can't record the police, but you can have them record themselves when you catch them, when you catch them clear as day, involved with the same people, with sequence shifts, with identity thefts and frauds, and they go back to the same grammar school, and they have complete possession over the sense and sensibilities of principals because of the uses of their kids and family members, of mayors because of the uses of their kids and family members themselves for predicate acts, and they need to hide life progressions, motivations for roles with other natures, long having self-valued their roles with criminal justice systems, completely sick against all identity ground locations, sickly distinctly, and everyone having blamed other things, others themselves on that, and they're defending it. Simultaneously using of premises treatments, sequence treatments, finite active progressive treatments, identity treatments, names treatments. In other words, they can't be defended in us at the same time, so they can't follow mandated law now. So who's playing games with the people with the Wethersfield town offices? These are also people with also religious locations. And Wethersfield town office with the voting locations, right through administrations. The same people with the military, state police, Wethersfield police, their family members, intercities police. My town's police chief won years ago with the same house involved with them. A Cololo family, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed by officers forging and switching names, uses of the name Sullivan. Now, over the past month with Wethersfield police. These are further people involved with the child sex offenders with a Phil Cololo also. There's a Phil Cololo with two Mendez police that put me in fake quotations, fake audio and video on the Wethersfield Police Department, fake communications with the older police brother, or the younger one. I never had a conversation with them. That police department and that family and people associated with them have been fabricating audio and video, attaching little kids and their families to fake words through time, fake locations through time, fake sequence relationships through time, and with judges with the various natures of courts and prosecutors. It has a whole bunch of confessions and weird identity thefts and frauds roles with people associated with town line drive businesses and the policing of them that are foreign and domestic influenced. And nothing personal against those people. The people from Wethersfield High School with the judges involved, with a Pandolf family, and with a Spada family involved with this Del Ferra family, and other people near there with what's his name? Mike Levine is also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated by one of the on-campus child offenders, sexually, medically, educationally, identity thefts and frauds. Now they also have the daughters of this Leahy family, whole Leahy family. They have their whole kids and their whole families, the ones that don't work there, the ones in grammar schools involved with child sex offenders, leaders, and their roles with their parents having been involved with drugs crimes and pretending to be against that through time, lying about other people, pretending they had conversations with people in their town because they're doctors. People pretend to believe them, and they're not supposed to be doing that. If they had conversations, I had no conversations with lay family in my life, and I want the names of the judges associated with them pulled from the sequence shifts and from their pattern of speaking lies into the record, out of sequence, and against the rules. I had to write a complaint against Judge Smith when I was a kid with the same sick people. It has something tied to Wethersfield Parks also, and the name McGee. There are various officers who shared the name McGee on different falsified police reports at different times. They recorded, confessed, and demonstrated that my town's police chief is involved with that. Also, there are personal roles with federal criminals of various natures since before they got caught, including ones as the co-defendants of former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin. There are also a whole bunch of people that recorded, confessed, and demonstrated a guy named Dr. Dewberry and or Dr. Dingleberry, who I don't know, he came up to me and lied, made a statement to me, and made a threat to me with one of the people further then and now involved with the principal sex offenders campus, and personally with the children of one of the Wethersfield police, the people who answer the phones for them, involved with them with predicate acts, wire crimes, mail crimes, untimely deaths, uses of the undying to timely death locations, uses of investigators to hide their personal, grouped, and altogether fakeness. Uses, in other words, they're self-valuing it. Uses of wars to do that. Don't forget when they say that more people died on 9/11. Don't forget that we went to war. Don't forget that they held us down. Where American success is comparative to what? Nations that had been broken to what the Native Americans and to what James Madison's plan helped only do damage control against. And see, everyone wants to speak as an identity that's fake, pretending other, without letting that demonstrated. So we have to have mandated law followed outside of courts. The courts and the branches of government are not going to play like they have separate but equal. They need to learn about the Trinity and correlation nature. They are victim predators who came through sick campuses, and we're going to have this shit demonstrated because they're going to have to follow mandated law now. So get me a response in paper. Since I was a kid, they don't provide paper and recorded, confessed, and demonstrated they stack exceptions and exception nature, pretending other for themselves, criminally. They're playing games with it. They're setting up exceptions tied to the subject is their remote uses of their investigators. They have medical people and the people who aren't medical, but they're supposed to rely on what the medical people tell them, like counselors and social people tied to databases. Their kids. They have them involved with an identity theft fraud method where they make instances between kids. And they have sequence shifts, self-value by people on both sides of fake care for all of them, and of fake negative, not negative for the reasons they pretend, like slavery, like racism. It's not racism. When they're acting, and when there are people that perceive people are racism, a lot of time it's because the black and white are recorded clear as day, involved with a method where they walk up where they're kept needing to hide lie progressions, and where they're using methods where there's no way to get a response, and they keep playing off of it. They're hiding the lie progressions with the identity, with the sequence shift roles between each campus. And then they have it intra-campuses and inter-campuses. And it's not legitimately them with the undercover. trying to establish people with the. You hear what they say on TV. Forget about it. They're completely. I don't know Charlie Bose and his sister. She pretended other. The only time I met her in my life was in one time around with Chris Walters. I don't know if he's dead or not. She said he's dead now. Then I went back to jail because at Old Town Cafe, which is on Main Street in Old Weathersfield, which is all along Church Street, and then the corner of Church Street and Main Street, since founding has been involved with people with a method of organizing. Since I was a kid, are involved with people with identity thefts and frauds, where they set up exceptions where they know you, and with people they don't know at all, like a Joshua Julian, who's also involved with the Facebook page of the Principal Child Defenders Campus when he was still on the campus note. So we have women judges that are also recorded, a number of them, having been involved with that, forcing such. Intercities, because they had roles with the locations crime, with the prosecutors, male and female judges, retired and standing before that, and police forms, forging names, switching names on falsified police reports. So they have, they have Fox Connecticut News, you can't even see it now, but they have people like with they have a bunch of people in the Mendez police family from Weathersfield, Connecticut, involved with Hartford Police. Also with people with the ILO family, involved with federal crimes with people on off with the locations next to schools. He's been involved through time with falsified police reports and with identity thefts and frauds with people on off schools that are connected, on off Buckley High School in Hartford, on off Weathersfield schools, and as the people that are involved with a former Mayor Gold, who are further involved with the people on the child sex offender registry before they were caught, during the time they were caught, and further with other natures of organized crime and confessions of people tied to them. People bring up names of people I didn't know in the past who went out of their way to pretend other. So Debbie Gold, who was a daughter of a former Mayor Gold, she was in another class. They time it where she's going to come and run and yell at things that may making no sense with passions and emotions. It sounds, I don't even know who she is. I mean, I remember one time from training Dreidel years ago, a year before that, and she did it a couple of times. I don't know if that was ever her one time. And then she did it again in 6th grade. So in other words, she was having them, she was acting, and there's no way to counter. A girl come yelling and making no sense. And then they put things in the databases, whatever, and you don't get to communicate with anyone. And it pretended I had been in the place, in her presence before that. Now, I caught them same cliques associated with this Joshua Julian are also involved with a bunch of federal criminals and killers and people associated with body dumping spots associated with it that were pretending to be against such in the past. And Joshua Julian was quoting an article because news people through time have been fabricating audio and video with the FBI, CIA cliques and their family members that are also recorded and involved with predicate acts methods with overt criminal enterprises per how they call themselves that, especially if they're criminal, they're undercover police or whatever, like the Los Solitos and stuff like that, claiming themselves to be criminal enterprises overtly on YouTube. There's a Joey Quest who's involved with a Fred Grisey, with my town's police chief through time, with houses next to schools, next to the high school, on all sides of the high school and the middle school, including businesses in the post office, and the business and further on off those places and tied to that, where there are life progressions, where there are tied to these, where there are roles with the identity thefts and frauds. So they can't make treatments about elections fraud properly, can they? They can't bring up a subject and be honest They can only bring it up and then have to pretend, they have to pretend that we can't read their passions and emotions in relationship to their sequence shifts. In other words, they're asking their passions and emotions to be evidence. All that, where that is in conjunction with locations where people are being hurt, increasingly forbid their constitutional value, let alone their human value, let alone their human identity of volume science that is native pure, no matter who you are. And that would be known by now. See, but we don't have free speech. See, we have people offensively needing to pretend other. We have sickly, distinctly, differentially education of each age of it and each location. Sickly, distinctly too. Because they need to hide from the capability of the short words, using what is true always, and not denying exceptions. What slavery was about was a predicate acts delivery system method that employed the human syntax nature, the human fact sheet nature, the human sequence / simultaneous nature, incapable of defending its roles and identity with and as such. A country is an identity that is in conjunction to all other identities individually grouped together. Your identity is a conjunction to all your cells, all the parts of your body individually grouped in together. All complete identities of your body have a semi-nature relationship to your complete identity. And that is in demonstration of the complete identity, that each complete identity is simultaneously a semi-nature relationship to it. We are sequence nature. Sequence nature is only positive and positive unto itself, where and how it is simultaneous nature, where everything can only stay this simultaneous nature. Its identity relationship to itself and the value of that, because it's a value. But simultaneously, so follow mandated law for Wethersfield schools and Wethersfield interbranch family members. And don't pretend it's personal, because I didn't ask you guys to make opinions and backgrounds. You guys are playing this game with on and off campuses and on and off locations, including with elderly. These are 6 standards for elderly. You see those little box holes rooms? They can't address these identity ground locations properly. We're going to examine the science of the science. Science, true, reveals all identity ground locations, let alone the most forsaken, like any city. All the locations were designed to cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, and they set up exceptions and exception nature as market positions forced, criminally foreign influence, forced that self-value against the will of our founder parents. How that was forced self-value. They were supposed to play that theater. Because if they didn't, they had to play that theater, in other words, they had to hide what they were capable of syntactically, as the short words, with convictions and passions, as the protraction, as the long words, proper. So we have to use correlation natures, simultaneously inherent, active, and progressive means. And we have to have clear how James Madison and the people behind him have the plan that forced the fake, incapable of defending themselves as they were victims, but victim predators in forced roles, and of affording a quality of correlation nature, because it could discern the predicate acts, the delivery system method, the breaching method. But to do so, we had to use, and we have to use, what is actually recorded, which is everyone pretending other things other than themselves. No one cared about our founding parents properly because of how everyone was backed into this game of branches. of sick fake scientists pretending other, of uses of that. Wherein how simultaneously overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and hundreds of nations shared policing here and there. They have to share locations. They have to share a way to be fair with how they can't manipulate final active progressive treatments. Meanwhile, they have those people associated with the policing of routes, associated with all along, on, off the locations next to schools, on all sides of them. This is per the method that is using identity, how it works. Since before computers, we are a value/value progression to all identity ground locations, to all instances. And where identity is simultaneously a relationship to positive and negative in values, as the value/value progression. As an increasing identity of volume, as value as nature/nature as value, then computers were made to work. The database relationship to all locations in memory, they were already all captive by tactically, methodically, criminally foreign influenced laws that were criminally legalized. What was slavery about? It is about laws that were criminally legalized. And that was force sustained. So a whole bunch of negative value, nature progressions, acts, and natures that nature would demonstrate, because its science stays the same. It demonstrates what's going to cause evolution's fruits and gifts. It means out of nowhere. Or what's going to cause its negative value, nature progressions, acts, and natures. See, no one fathomed a breaching method would increasingly self-value, doing what nature would continue to demonstrate it doesn't want done increasingly forever. See, but that's how it maintains. Everyone blaming, it already maintained. Everyone already blamed other things other than themselves for the real cause of negative value, nature, progressive actions, and they defended that. Simultaneously, everyone already defended premises treatments, sequence treatments, finite active progressive treatments, identity treatments that are so sick, while simultaneously pretending other. That can't be defended unless simultaneously. Let someone speak. If someone wants to argue with someone, so we have to be able to counter the aggressions of the interbranch, because they have the guns behind them, and they have these methods that everyone missed, wherein how they're worthless, wherein how they are great people. We are lucky to have people that would sacrifice themselves to be service people. This breaching method knew that we would have to say that. For example, everyone's sense and sensibility, use Jane Austen's phrase. They're going to go nuts when we reveal what is actually capable of being revealed. What is actually the integrity of the only people allowed to tell you about the news, for example. If they could change, and it would be a lot better. Then means come out of nowhere. Evolution's fruits and gifts come out of nowhere. Integrity comes out of nowhere. So they're pretending integrity is a theater that adds sense type things, that add placement people, and they train public relations people. This is what the people like. This is what the studies show. This is what we have to be. This presentation of the truth. In other words, of passions and emotions, towards subject treatments that are separated from all that is actually entailed. And increasingly, that is in collusion with that which is really behind, that which hurts everybody attached to each of the subjects, like poverty, like slavery. Poverty is a certain kind of slavery. And we have to counter slavery, to counter poverty. People go, oh, it's jobs. If it was that cut and dry, in other words, the jobs, They're not all innocent. They're victims forced to be unnatural native system. So we have to have a bridge and see who can't take that bridge. Because we're going to have to let go of industries when we simultaneously reveal means out of what all these industries are profiting on. Because people need help more and more and more and more for things that are unnatural, being and having been leveraged against them. Every single person of correlation nature. That's how you didn't have the simple truths. What caused slavery? A breaching method that forced people to roles with something that is unnatural, specifically to make everyone cause other things, others blame other things, others, and then defend that. Make time treatment, for specifically making the identities of integrity that could only increasingly be right back to all identity ground locations, right back to every standing identity of correlation nature, each age of it, each potential nature of it. Because this guy's inside, they can figure out correlation. Not. Boxing and get hot. So you have to follow mandated law. So WFSB, rather than making me pick out your individuals involved, why don't you just get the guys from the background and the ones in the background there was a story you did. There's still people using it for other natures of organized crime, still people with the upskirt natures with the schools. And there's a Leahy family with their daughter, further involved with people, men and women associated with Joshua Julian, further with the child sex offenders, with the police force, and with the Coast Guard involved with women. Also through time, with the corner with Church Street, which is which is one of the local streets that is on all sides of one of the schools, with the people that are all sides of other schools connected by predicate acts roles, with the narratives and the illusions in the background, pretending passions and emotions and pretending to know me. And where and how the only reason they know me is because they were influenced by, they had roles recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, even if they deny it. That's even more evidence. And when they were growing up, with investigators involved with wire crimes, mail crimes, falsified police reports, drugs crimes, medicines crimes, identity thefts, frauds, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, all the same cliques. And they're not in my classes. And the ones in my class, I knew, like Anthony Agnew, I never had anything to do with him. He's involved with these police and with the people with the pattern on off Fox Connecticut News in downtown Hartford, the buildings next to them. And on off the clubs downtown with the policing of them, like associated with this Charlie Bose. And he's got a father involved with like motorcycle guys and stuff like that with the police forms. And the gangs, when they're undercover and training them and stuff like that, where they're involved with identity theft fraud, they're stacking fabricated audio and video into databases, and they involved with predicate acts on my street. I never saw them on my street, but per everyone's confessions, and the police that brought up the Cololo name about a month ago with an officer who said his name was Sullivan. Then they said they only have one Sullivan. It's a female. And this is a guy from Weathersfield town offices. Sound like a little punk. See, we have some little punk judges and prosecutors who need to hide what they did in the past and what they are. So we have to have them with all that. We have to get them on paper. You have to follow mandated law for WFSB and for Fox Connecticut News. They use crime methods pretending not to understand people. There's also an officer named Hunter, who's involved with predicate acts on and off CCSU and Trinity College, with judges and prosecutors personally, with their family members and family members of the people that work for them, involved with predicate acts together. Time, lipoaggressions, illusions, time. They can't pretend what they need to on paper, and it's got nothing to do because other nations demonstrated this stuff too. Rolls with this. There's no integrity. for one modern nation where they have shared policing, shared training of industries. They are nonsense. Those impositions within the logistics of a virus, for example, how could that be separable from how the identity of the ground locations were set up since before cars, by that method that had slavery involved? Not to make things better, to make things syntactically, everyone trapped, incapable of defending their quality of fact cheap nature as victims, and of affording a quality of fact cheap nature to help themselves. We are in an identity of negative value nature progression, increasingly valued, exception nature having been set up by the breaching method for people syntactically to pretend other. Because one identity of volume is tied to our syntax nature, why we are this quality of fact cheap nature. Why it is critical to understand how alpha and omega and how yin yang work together to teach about what is distinct, non-distinctly and simultaneously one identity of volume, its identity of relationship to itself, and the value of that. How it is distinctly variably, how is it distinctly constantly, even which is the same thing of how variably. So news goes real fast and attaches people to fake words and fake locations. And it's worse than that, because then they want to leave out how they pretend it's only about that. They separate subjects. The police separate the subjects while they are stacking more names involved. Then they use the crime method with other countries use against their own too. They pretend not to understand people. They brought this up. Investigators, and vetting identities and their family members and their neighbors since before founding and right through. They've been criminally foreign influenced with everyone else. Many ways, delusions wrought too, and rules predators. So follow mandated law for your branches of government, your fake branches of government. And please, news media, please follow mandated law. CNN, these are your sources. Don't pretend that there's credibility to the Justice Department and your interbranch sources on and off Connecticut State University that are also recorded involved with predicate acts with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, in his defendant capacities. As people involved recorded with predicate acts with the investigators of the World Trade Center attack, as people leading up to it and since involved with predicate acts with military families. Justin Kovinskis, I don't know him. He's one of the people all along that route from Wethersfield, one of the people near Webb School in Wethersfield, involved with predicate acts, identity thefts or frauds, wire crime rolls, and for evidence racketeering where he rolls with the crime methods that the judges and prosecutors have, where they have roles with sexually natured and judicial natured evidence racketeering, identity thefts and frauds, where they use Facebook for it, where they have to pretend passions and emotions. So they have rape threats and stuff like that. They have remote uses of the principal sex offenders campus since before he was caught off campus. They were replacing that and other such with fabricated audio and video. So don't pretend they could have an election. Now these are people also with sequence shifts further tied and predicate acts in other cases, further as ones involved with post-dated documents post-dated from inside the Ninth Circuit Court right before the World Trade Center attack. They had shown the judges papers that had been post-dated to appear late. They had papers that had been brought to the court on time and timestamped timely. That was proven after, led to a 2006 district court case in Connecticut. That was in Manhattan. Ninth Circuit is right next to the World Trade Center towers, right before they were taken out. That proven led to the 2006 case, with 3 of the co-defendants, a former director of the FBI, various other federal criminals, and their family members involved with Wethersfield Interbranch family members with predicate acts against me and little kids through time. And this is intercities. I didn't even know it was connected to my father's case when I started reporting, because people confessed to me and others around me about the judges and so there were judges and prosecutors and people involved and military families involved with former director of the FBI and his deposition when he was a defendant leading up to a 2006 case. Before the World Trade Center attack and since, the Hartford courts and New Britain courts were involved, recorded, confessed, and demonstrated, involved with predicate acts with West Hartford locations and intercities locations, including from Wethersfield. Because when I was in Wethersfield, when I was in grammar school, they were recorded, confessed, and demonstrated also involved people with a Sullivan family on Park Street. They didn't say the name Sullivan, they said the name Lance Cuddy. And so he's associated with a whole bunch of police forms and judges that are personally involved through time with predicate acts of various natures with a whole bunch of foreign and domestic family members at houses on the corner of Park Street and New Park Avenue are involved with the judges criminally involved and the prosecutors and the uses of the court. They offered my father, I said, well, why don't you just do it here if you have your deposition here of the former director. So that location, the Hartford courts, I didn't know that at the time. I was trying to report they were involved with affecting confessions and a request for help to me and others, because they were using investigators, because they pretend to record things, and they pretend passions and emotions in relationship to what they record, because they can't address evidence the way they're supposed to address evidence, because it will reveal how through time they've been fabricating audio and video and replacing evidence with fabricated audio and video. They criminally say, oh, I don't see the evidence of that. They know this because they recorded, confessed, and demonstrated to me and others they fabricated falsified police reports, even over the phones this is recorded. But they know no one's watching the phones. So we have to have mandated law followed outside of court. And it's unprecedented because science is unprecedented. So evolution's fruits and gifts are. It only feels like game. Follow mandated law for your country. Who will man up for them? Say, let's get them onto paper now. Let's get them to respond to this video too, because they're messing with my video. They're identity thefts and frauds against everyone. They have sick, criminally foreign influence readings of statutes. So let them make their opinions on paper. Make sure they pick one name in sequence too.